Good morning. Sounds like you can all hear me. I'm Peter Bonos, member of the Standing Committee of First Church Boston, and we are glad to see you all with us in person, and we are also glad those of you who are watching and listening online via YouTube. Everyone's welcome, especially those of you who are here for the first time, maybe the only time if you're passing through town or channel surfing on YouTube. But if you're here in our magnificent sanctuary and you'd like to get to know more about us, meet some of us in person, stick around for coffee hour after the service. Or we're all pretty approachable. Talk to any of us you like. Or better yet, stay for the Learning Community event, the first since COVID, in the auditorium after the service, after you've had time for a cup of coffee. It is, and while I'm welcoming, I'm also here to welcome, you're not here, you're there, our guest presenter for this afternoon, Dr. Molly Howes, author of A Good Apology. So if I blow the announcement somehow, I'll know what to do. She is a member of the UU congregation in Sherborne, Massachusetts, and knows our minister from there. And we look forward to learning more from Dr. Howes at that event. Also, to learn more about us, you can visit our website, firstchurchboston.org, or contact Reverend Stephanie or myself or any one of us who looks approachable during coffee hour. Coffee hour will be immediately following the service in the narthex. The narthex is what we call the space you all came through to get into the sanctuary. And on the other side of that is the auditorium where the Learning Community event will be held. Other announcements, the principal one I know about will be given by Rosemary Keene of our Social Justice Committee, so I'll yield the floor to Rosemary.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This Sunday is our second social justice plate collection for this church year, and our community partner, UU Mass Action, is our designated recipient. UU Mass Action was founded in 2006, and it's the first statewide UU organizing and advocacy group in the United States. Its mission is to connect the social justice work of the 140 UU congregations in our state. You can read about its work in this year's annual report via the link that was in our e-news this week. We rely on the UU Mass Action staff of 4 to stay up to date on climate, indigenous, solitary confinement, and immigration justice legislation in process at the State House, and to advise us on how and when to take action on these bills. In the spring, UU Mass Action organizes an advocacy day where dozens, if not hundreds, of UUs swarm the State House and to make our voices known on these issues. If this sounds like fun to you, and it is, please connect with our social justice team at our meeting next Sunday, and we can keep you in touch when we know the date for the 2024 Advocacy Day. Thank you for giving generously to support this wonderful, innovative, and effective organization. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Rosemary. I see we also have some coming events in our ongoing series of explorations of our history involving race and slavery. So check your bulletin for that, or if you're viewing us remotely, visit our website. I see one of them's coming up Thursday. And Once again, thank you all for being here today. Let our service begin.
Welcome to each of you and to the all of you. Welcome to you who have made mistakes and to you who have been hurt by the mistake of another. Welcome to the part of you who has to be right and the part of you who can listen to how you've been wrong. Welcome to being human, to being in relationship with others, to the work of repairing harm so that we can stay connected. In this hour, may we listen well, and may we find the courage to open ourselves to a larger web of connections of which we are a part. I now invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we light our chalice and say together our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church,
and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Our wick is too short today. I'll fix that in a second. In the meantime, you please greet one another. And if you can, take a second to wave to those cameras up there so our folks online know we are thinking of them. And let's please sing together now, which is exactly the same name of the hymn. We sing now together, number 67.
Lord.
Please be seated. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Hank Person. It is my joy to be with you all again, and for me to share with you a story. The story comes from a character in Islamic tradition named Nasruddin, who was an actual person, however, has had numerous stories attached to him, sort of all of sort of Aesop's fables, and he's become sort of a character like Mother Goose. And in many pictures and statues of Nasruddin around the world, especially the Islamic world, he's almost always seated on a donkey, seated backwards on a donkey. The story for that is because he once was, he would ride his donkey around sitting backwards, and his followers asked him, "Why are you doing this?" And he said, "I wanted to go in one direction, and my donkey wanted to go in a different direction, so this is a compromise." But that's not the story I have for you this morning. The story I have for you is about a time when Nasruddin, who is often, he's a character that is filled with wisdom and also foolishness. So all of his stories have those two factors in them, and a teacher wanted to gain some knowledge from him, and so he set up. This teacher was very busy, but he said, "Look, I really want to meet with you. I will come to your house at 10:30 tomorrow morning." And Nasruddin said, "Of course, great, I will be there. I look forward to our conversation." And 10:30 rolls around, and the teacher shows up at the house, but Nasruddin wasn't there. Nasruddin was down at the local coffee shop, playing cards and checkers and telling stories. But the teacher didn't know this. Teacher sat there and waited and knocked and got more and more frustrated and angrier and upset. And finally, after a half hour, he said, I have to leave. And he was just so angry. And he took from his pocket a piece of chalk, and he wrote on Nasruddin's door, "Foolish oaf," in big letters. And he stomped back home. Well, Nasruddin, after drinking his coffee and hanging out with his friends, he decides to go home. And as soon as he gets home, he sees that name written on his front door, "Foolish oaf," and he remembers his appointment. So he goes rushing over to the teacher's house, and he knocks on the door, and the teacher welcomes him into his house, and he said, "I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I forgot our appointment. I was doing something else, and that was rude, and I am so sorry that I made you, take time out of your day to come see me, and then I wasn't there. That's so rude of me. I'm so sorry. And I wouldn't have remembered our appointment until I went home and I saw that you had written your own name on my front door." So often the way we treat others says more about us. In your week ahead, think of all the ways you talk about the way you interact with other people. And maybe even think about a sacred name of yourself that you would write on your door or other people's doors, so that when people see you and interact with you, they are reminded of the good aspects of who you are and how you interact in the world. And now, off to Stephanie.
Beautiful text we use by permission today, and as Hank was talking about that wonderful story that he gave and made us all chuckle, this text teaches us to walk gently, as we should all walk gently with each other, and how the earth will give to us if we walk gently and listen.
Thank you, choir, and Ms. Murray and Gigi for getting us permission to be able to do that beautiful piece. Our theme this month on interdependence, talks not only about our connection to each other, but also our connection to the earth, and that reminder of the lessons the earth can teach us, even in moments of struggle, And right now we are seeing plenty of moments of struggle and difficulty in our world. There's so much wrong in our personal harm that we may be facing in our friendships or family, social injustices from racism and transphobia, and of course global issues from climate change to war and humanitarian crises. In many traditions, religious traditions, there are different prayers and practices of naming what is wrong, sometimes called prayers of confession. Today, I want to share a UU prayer of confession written by the Reverend Rosemary Bray McNatt. As we begin, I invite you to take a deep breath in and out, and another in and out. In this moment of worship, we call to mind those times of failure and regret common to all of us. We remember first in silence those times when we have failed to do all that we meant to do, or through our actions failed to be all we were meant to be. We now recall our moments of integrity, those times we have lived into our deepest values and acted as the human beings we always dreamed of being. We choose at this moment to lay down the burden of our shortcomings and grasp the courage to begin anew. Together, we affirm our capacity for goodness and grace, for freedom and purpose and joy. We are not trapped in our past, but freed by creation to live and grow today. With gratitude, let us now rest in a moment of stillness. Amen. Now is a moment to show our gratitude for the work of the UU Mass Action. As you heard Rosemary say at the top of the service, this is an important organization that does advocacy work on behalf of UU values here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. If you're like, but I don't have any cash, that's not a problem. There is a QR code in the order of service, and you can text. That number is, I think, in the order of service, and you'll see a slide online in a moment, or just go to firstchurchboston.org. Thank you for giving generously as you are able to support the work of the UU Mass Action.
If you'd like to support the work of this church with a financial donation, you may visit our website at www.firstchurchboston.org. You can also send a contribution via text. The new number is 855-537-2170. Text a number representing your dollar amount, 5, 10, 20, etc., and you will receive a confirmation by email. Thank you.
The reading today is from Dr. Molly Howe's new book, Why Apologize? Is that the name of the book? A Good Apology. And as I've said, the author will be available after the service and will be speaking in the auditorium. So if you have any comments or questions, you can bring them to her. From chapter 1, Why Apologize is the chapter heading. No one wants to be blamed for something going wrong. Most of us are inclined to shy away from accepting fault. The urge to argue or protect your point makes sense if the goal is to be right or blameless. But going to the mat insisting on your rightness works in the wrong direction in most human engagements. In relationships, this kind of battle can be won only by losing. That is, you may be right, but you won't be closely connected. You won't end up feeling like you're on the same team. You won't understand each other better. According to a report in the Harvard Business Review by Judith Glaser, author and business consultant, your brain is hooked on being right. She describes the reinforcing power of the adrenaline that bathes your brain during a competitive argument. But interestingly, she also reports that oxytocin, the hormone activated by our attachment to another person, feels comparably pleasurable. Not only that, it opens up networks in the prefrontal cortex, which further increases our ability to trust. Psychologists have further found that oxytocin, alongside actual social support, directly dampens the harmful effects of stress on a person's body. Even from a physiological standpoint, connection can be a better choice than being right. And from chapter 5, as I've pointed out, many people do not believe they are at fault for a problem, so they don't want to address the reaction another person has. We don't like the idea that we caused pain because we don't want to think of ourselves as the kind of person who hurts others. It's understandable to want to preserve a self-concept as a good, nice person, but the two are not contradictory. The kind of person who causes pain, often by mistake, is every kind of person. Relationships are like a contact sport. We frequently bang and bruise one another, often without meaning to cause harm. If we want to participate fully, we need to develop the skills to recover from the inevitable hurts and get back in the game, hopefully together. And now our next hymn, number 323, Break Not the Circle.
the wall in my office is my diploma for my Master's of Divinity from Princeton Theological Seminary. Written in Latin, I would have no idea what it says. Peter might. Except there's a translation on the back. Apparently, this very formal diploma declares me not only to be a Master of Divinity, but also blameless. And yet, just because someone writes this down in calligraphy does not make it so. I can assure you that I am not without blame, error, or mistake. Truthfully, none of us are we? Even so, I am mindful that this church emerges from the historic stream of the Puritans who founded this congregation in 1630. Today, the Puritans have often become synonymous with a rigid moral attitude that clings to expectations of purity, of perfection, of being right. While First Church has moved theologically left over the centuries, incorporating Unitarian and Universalist theologies, I wonder how much of the old puritanical attitudes linger within or among us. How burdened are we by an expectation of being rigidly right? Do we have to be perfect? Or can we also admit when we've been wrong? Can we also apologize? In her book, A Good Apology, and it's so pretty, I want to show it to you. Psychologist Molly Howes acknowledges the widespread inclination to resist accepting fault to protect your point. But she cautions, going to the mat, insisting on your rightness, works in the wrong direction in most human engagements. In relationships, this kind of battle can be won only by losing. That is, you may be right, but you won't be closely connected. You won't end up feeling like you're on the same team. You won't understand each other better. What matters more, being blameless or being in relationship? Throughout her book, Dr. Howes tells multiple stories of relationships in trouble, friendships, siblings, and spouses. Her stories make it clear that wading into the process of a good apology is not easy. Indeed, she explains that our brains are wired in ways that make it difficult for us to admit fault. We want to perceive ourselves as being a good person, not as one who harms another. And yet the stories she shares convey dogged determination to do the hard work of listening to the harm caused, apologizing, making amends, and taking steps to ensure not repeating the harm. A good apology, she explains, requires all four of these steps: listening well to the other you have harmed, apologizing and meaning it, no more quick "I'm sorry," repairing the rift with appropriate amends, and doing what you can to keep the same harm from happening again. One of the things I most appreciated about Dr. Howes' book is that she included examples of her own mistakes, including losing it with her brother over the phone one day. I don't know about you, but I find it easier to take counsel from someone who I believe gets it. Nor can I stand here and pretend that I never lose it, especially when my partner, Bill, of nearly 20 years, is sitting here today. So even if I wanted to gloss over the times I have lost it and harmed another, his presence keeps me honest. I am not blameless. And while I have not been here long, I know I've already done or said things that were not as considerate or kind or patient as I aspire to be. Even ministers make mistakes. Even churches are places of harm, relational rupture, and conflict. When I was a ministerial intern at the Unitarian Universalist Area Church in Sherburne, the senior minister, the Reverend Nathan Dietering, made it clear that churches are not exempt from conflict and harm. In a class for people wishing to join the congregation, Reverend Nathan explained that the test of their commitment to the church would come when the church disappointed them. His statement startled me. On the one hand, why, yes, I know churches are not perfect places. But on the other hand, aren't we supposed to believe that they are places of goodness and love, not disappointment and harm? By naming the truth that disappointment would be part of the relationship, Reverend Nathan opened the space to expect the inevitable presence of conflict and hurt in a community comprised of multiple different but connected people. Speaking to the inevitability of harm in relationships, Dr. Howes writes, relationships are like a contact sport. We frequently bang and bruise one another, often without meaning to cause harm. If we want to participate fully, we need to develop the skills to recover from the inevitable hurts and get back in the game, hopefully together. While speaking in metaphor, Dr. Howe's description also made me think quite literally of sharing a kitchen with Bill. Years ago, we lived in a house with a glorious, spacious kitchen with 2 parallel counters separated by a generous aisle. Whole parties of people could move in and around this kitchen. Then we moved into a farmhouse with a 21st century kitchen shoehorned into a 19th century footprint. Consequently, the U-shape of the main workspaces results in repeatedly bumping into each other and asking the other to step aside to reach a drawer or a cabinet. It's really annoying. When working alone, there's none of the oops and excuse me, but we like to cook together, to share in the labor of our joint household, of creating meals. And choosing to be together in the kitchen means we must literally negotiate not banging into each other. Rather, we aim to support one another's need for a pot, a spice, or a burner in our shared project of eating together, of living together. That's the idea, anyway. The reality is that sometimes it's work. I just want what I want, and he's in the way. Dr. Howes suggests sharing space with others means we're going to run into each other. If we expect that being in relationship with others means that we're going to bump, bruise, and harm one another, then maybe we can also anticipate the need for repair and apology as part of those relationships. Throughout this month, I have invited us to reflect on the value of interdependence, one of the 7 proposed values for a revised Article 2 of the Unitarian Universalist Bylaws. You can read all 7 values on the back of your order of service. In describing interdependence, the proposed language includes a call to, quote, work to repair harm and damaged relationships, end quote. If we value our connections to each other, then we must expect to work on them. In a sense, the vast globe we share with more than 8 billion people and innumerable other living things is but a very large kitchen requiring coordination and cooperation to support one another. Being in relationship takes work, including the work of repair. This is true in our interpersonal relationships, the friends, families, and partners with whom we share our literal kitchens, as well as our work colleagues, neighbors, social groups, and even nations. One of the stories in Dr. Howe's book involves former Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres. In 1985, then U.S. President Ronald Reagan visited the graves of U.S. soldiers at a German cemetery, which also included graves of SS officers. This visit deeply pained and offended many Israelis. And yet, the U.S. was also an important ally to Israel. In response, Peres said, "A friend is a friend. A mistake is a mistake. When a friend makes a mistake, it is still a mistake, and a friend is still a friend." Mistakes do happen among friends. Harms occur between family, and disappointments arise with one's church community. Their presence need not signal the end of relationship, but the work of apology may be needed to repair trust and relationship. Listening to the experience of another who feels harmed by your action, even when your intentions were good, is not easy to do. Especially in relationships with significant history, there is likely a complicated mix of hurts flowing in multiple directions. Who goes first? How do I listen openly when I also feel hurt? I'm not sure there is a single answer to these questions. The process of a good apology takes time, takes courage, and takes energy. Is it worth it? I suppose that depends on how much you value repairing the particular relationship. When I think about my own life, I can point to the relationships I have worked on to maintain for years, others that ruptured but I was able to repair at some level, and another that I have chosen to end. What is clear is that relationships will have moments of hurt and harm. We make mistakes. We misunderstand, misperceive, or just do something dumb. We bump and bruise each other in the crowded kitchens of life. Working to repair harms begins by acknowledging its presence in our relationships, by listening to the hurt of another, or by asking another to listen to our hurt. None of us are blameless in our lives. Learning the skills of accepting blame for our part, listening to the hurt we've caused, and meaning it when we say we're sorry is important work. So also is figuring out how to make amends and work towards not repeating the mistakes. This is all work of a good apology. It is work we can practice in our friendships, our families, our church, and beyond. If you would like to learn more, as you've heard, please stay for a presentation by Dr. Howes or look up her book, A Good Apology. While the work of a good apology may not be easy, it may just be what we need to repair and rebuild important relationships in our interdependent lives. So may it be. Amen. As I mentioned, part of the theme of interdependence this month is also talking about our connection to the earth. And this closing hymn, you should have, hopefully everyone has a flyer that was with your order of service. And this was written by Leo Collins, our former longtime music director. Please rise in body or in spirit as we sing together. Please join me in extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now we go into a world full of beauty and brokenness. May we hold fast to our faith in the flourishing of life, the abundance of love, and an ever more inclusive week.